Good there.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me now? Everybody's good?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So first of all, thanks for having me speak here tonight. I used to be a member years ago, and it's been quite a while since I've spoken at the group. So thanks again after a long hiatus. Tonight, we're going to talk about South Africa Private Reserve Safari. So I put this presentation together not just to show pretty pictures, hopefully, but to be able to answer questions for those of you who've thought about going to Africa, South Africa in particular, for safari, and perhaps inspire some of you to put it on your bucket list if you haven't thought about it before. So we'll talk a little bit about what it means to be for a private reserve safari.
So you're not running it yet. Okay.
Oops.
Sorry. We have to share the screen first. Or,
Oh,
yeah. So let's share screen. To share. Right now, go ahead and run it.
Okay, now.
Can you see the presentation, Jay?
Yep. Yes.
Fantastic.
all right.
Oh, he's pretty.
So just an overview of what we're going to talk about tonight. I want to talk about when to go, what kind of camera equipment do you need? What did I have when I was there? What to expect when you're on safari. We'll talk about photo tips throughout the entire presentation, and then we'll end with some logic considerations if you're going to private reserves in South Africa. So this map is showing some of the more popular safari destinations in Africa. You may have heard the term Big Five when it comes to the Big Five animals. I kind of think there's a Big Five countries in Africa as well. Kenya and Tanzania, the northernmost ones on this map, are certainly big destinations. And then the other three I would consider as part of the Big Five would be Botswana, South Africa, and Namibia. So I've been to Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, and Namibia. I have not been to Botswana yet, so I can't comment on that, but I am going to Botswana this July. So touch back with me and I'll be able to give you some feedback. Not shown on this map would be Uganda and Rwanda. That's where you'd want to go if you want to do gorillas. But this gives you an idea of where we're talking about in the continent. So what is South Africa not? South Africa is not like Kenya and Tanzania. So if you have that vision of wide open plains with big herds of animals, maybe acacia trees dotting the landscape, that is really more Kenya and Tanzania. So this top photo was taken in the Serengeti in Tanzania, and you'll see it's just nothing but plains of grass in this particular scene. That was my last day in the Serengeti. The one down in the bottom corner, right corner, is a herd of wildebeest, and that is in the Masai Mara in Kenya. That was taken from a hot air balloon. And that's when during the migration, you'll see these huge herds. You can literally see thousands of animals in a day. Those are all wildebeest down there, and you'll see a safari vehicle parked right next to that herd. And then you may have seen people in the traditional red garb. Those are the Maasai. They're found in Kenya and Tanzania, primarily in Kenya. And South Africa versus Namibia. Namibia is a fantastic photographic destination because it's got a lot of variety. And I actually gave a presentation here some years ago on Namibia, and I'd be happy to do that again. I'm sure there's a lot of new members since that time. But Namibia offers a little bit of everything. If you're a landscape photographer, they've got phenomenal landscapes. They've got some of the highest sand dunes in the world. A lot of arid conditions. The bottom with all the animals, that's taken in Etosha National Park. So it's very arid. The animals all congregate around the water, and it's almost Disney-esque how many different species and the number of animals you'll see in your frame at one time. What's funny is this: you see all these species here, and then when the elephants come in, they all clear out of the water, and the elephants take over, and it becomes the elephant's water hole. And then also Namibia has the Himba tribe, which is this young lady where I photographed. She was in the doorway of a hut. And of course, there's no electric or anything, so everything is dark behind her, and that's giving that black background. So tonight we'll talk about South Africa, the Kruger ecosystem. So most people, if they think about national parks or some kind of reserve in South Africa, is the Kruger. So you hear Kruger National Park is what's shown here in the dark green. So this is about 7,000 square miles, which is more than twice the size of Yellowstone, just to put it in perspective, and slightly larger than the state of New Jersey. So that is a national park. I think, Bob, you mentioned Dr. Shire gave a presentation about a year ago. That was where he was in Kruger National Park. In the light green off to the side is, you might hear referred to as Greater Kruger. These are all the private reserves, and that's what we'll be talking specifically about tonight. So there's no fencing in between the private reserves and the national park. So the animals roam throughout the entire ecosystem, but there are some important differences, whether you're doing the private reserves or the Kruger National Park. So Kruger National Park is a national park, right? It's open to day trippers, campers, self-drivers, buses. Again, think along the same line as Yellowstone, very similar to that. In general, there's little oversight over vehicles. If there's a sighting, if you've been to Yellowstone, you know what it's like. If there's bears off to the side of the road, there's going to be a line of cars. And in general, there's no off-roading in the national park. So if you see a leopard 200 yards away, that's as close as you're going to get unless that leopard wants to come towards you. So I'm not trying to dissuade you to go to Kruger. I mean, it'd be still a great experience, just like it is going to Yellowstone is a great experience. But if you look at the private reserves, which are next to Kruger, and tonight we'll specifically be talking about Timbavati and Sabi Sands. Again, unfenced to Kruger, so the animals are free to roam back and forth. Some animals like cats are pretty territorial. They'll probably stay in that general area, but other animals that are used to migrating around or just traversing different areas, they're free to do so. A couple of big differences though. In the private reserves, only lodge guests are allowed to be on the land. So you don't have day trippers, you don't have campers, you don't have buses. It is just the people that are staying in the lodges. And then and the big difference is you can go off-road. So if you see that leopard 200 yards away, your ranger can drive over to that leopard. You get on top of animals for really intimate sightings. And when I say you go off-road, I mean you will drive over trees, go down into ravines. I mean, it's hold on to your hat. But it's so exciting when you get there because, as you'll see, you have some really intimate sightings. And they limit the number of vehicles at these places. Generally, no more than 3. And a lot of times you'll have the whole thing to yourself for quite a while until the radio goes out to the other guides and they bring other guests there. But we were at some places where there were already 3 vehicles there. And our guide said, was waiting for the okay. So we'd be looking at something and finally the call would come in and say, okay, somebody's leaving, you can come in. So again, much more intimate than what you would see in the national park. So when do you go on safari in Africa, particularly South Africa? Generally, the high season is the dry season, which is, now remember, they're the southern hemisphere, we're the northern hemisphere, so the seasons are reversed. So May through September is their winter. So there's less foliage. It's a lot easier to find the animals. They tend to congregate around water because water is more scarce. So they're easier to find. And when they do find them, you don't have all the leaves around them. And the temperatures are very nice. You'll see in the pictures, we are in jackets and stuff in the early morning, late afternoon. Middle of the day, you're in t-shirts. So we had a couple of days that were up into the 90s, but I say in general was probably around 80 degrees most of the time in the middle of the day. So quite comfortable. So what kind of gear? So my gear, I was talking to Bob earlier about this. When you go to Kenya and Tanzania, there's wide open spaces and you can't drive closer to the animal. That's when you need the big glass, 500s, 600s, all that stuff. You don't really need it in South Africa, which is nice. Everything you see in tonight's presentation was from one trip, 12 nights. And probably 90% of them were taken with the 100 to 400. I also carry a 24 to 105 and a 16 to 35. The 16 to 35 is primarily for doing night photography or shots around the lodge. I'm shooting Canon R5. If you're not familiar with Canon equipment, that's mirrorless. And I still have the Canon 5D Mark IV, which is a DSLR. That's my backup. I don't think I used it at all on this trip. So like a lot of people, I'm transitioning, which is a pain because I have now I have 2 mirrorless lenses. I didn't have them on this trip. So I'm using adapters for all of these DSLR lenses on my mirrorless camera. I have a Passport, my Passport 2 terabyte portable hard drive. That has a SD slot. I can actually just slide the SD card into that to transfer over images. but I'm big on memory cards. I've got way too many memory cards. Both cameras that I carry have 2 slots. I opt to do redundancy, and I copy all the images individually on each one. So rather than fill up, sequentially, they're duplicating all my images. I don't think I've had a hard flash drive fail yet, but I don't want it to happen when I'm on Safari for sure. Take a lightweight travel tripod. You don't shoot with a tripod at all for the wildlife because you're in a vehicle, but I do like to have it again if I'm doing any night photography or if I'm shooting around the lodge, particularly in the evenings. I'll use a lightweight tripod. Electrical adapter, just because you're in a different country, you'll need that. Bean bag. You can carry one, you can take an empty one and fill it up over there. Some of the better lodges will have bean bags available for you, or you can just throw a sweater or jacket over the railing or something like that to cushion things if you would like. I didn't actually take one on this trip, but I have taken them on other ones. So what's a typical day like on Safari? You get up early, about 5:30 to 6 o'clock. You're having coffees and pastries and stuff. You want to get out right when the sun is coming up. Two reasons. Number one, the animals are usually more active early morning, late afternoon, going into the evening. And also the light is the best time, obviously, in the morning and the evening. So you're getting the best light. In the afternoon, you're pretty much back at the lodge. Oh, by the way, this was taken from our bedroom at one of the lodges right before we're ready to go down and get our coffee. So the animals are very active in the morning, but the light may be low. You're shooting at higher ISOs than maybe you're used to, maybe sometimes more than you're comfortable with. But as we all know, the technology that exists now for taking out noise in photos is pretty phenomenal. I'm a big user of Topaz denoise. So anyway, you're shooting, low light early in the morning. This is a black-backed jackal. It's got some nice light coming in from the side. These are kudus. Just beautiful antelope species with huge horns. You can see, again, early morning light, getting a little rim light in some of the fur. Three lions. The middle one there is a very rare white lion. There's not many of these even in existence in the world. This is not an albino. This is a recessive gene. So his parents both carried the recessive gene for the white coloring. So he's a 3-year-old male. He's a spotted hyena. Kind of get a bad name, but I kind of like them. They're fun to photograph. So this is, then you stop and you'll have hot chocolate, coffee again, more snacks. You do not go hungry when you're on safari here. You're constantly eating. This is part of my group up at the top. And then at the bottom, another part of my group. So I'll tell you, I designed this trip. That's my wife next to me in the dark jacket, and then 3 friends came along. But I designed this, so it was all custom. I told them where I wanted to go, how many nights, etc. And then we pretty much had the whole Land Cruiser to ourselves. So we're just out on all of our own game drives. Then you go back to work. Obviously, a giraffe. I mean, this is all stuff you see we're like not even at 10 o'clock yet. This is an elephant giving itself a dust bath. So what they're doing is you'll see this all the time. They're covering themselves with dust, which helps protect them from insects and parasites, sunburn, all of that sort of thing. Warthog, Pumbaa from the Lion King. Lilac-breasted roller. You'll hear them called the LBR. They're everywhere. I don't know how many pictures of them, but if they're by the road, I still want my guide to stop because I just love photographing them. They're one of the most colorful birds you will see. And then it's time for breakfast. Usually you're back at the lodge for breakfast. This particular morning, our guides had a breakfast set up for us. We took a turn around off the road and they had this whole grilling area and table and everything set up for. And again, it's just for us. It's just the 5 of us and our ranger and our guide, but somebody was out there getting all this prepared for us. And then you take the afternoon off. So you have a couple options. I have listed here: lunch, bushwalk, massage, swim, sleep, take a nap, share a glass of wine. So this is my wife and one of our friends. This is having lunch at Ngala Tented Camp. And you'll see now we're in short sleeve shirts. So this is a bushwalk. It's not something you probably want to do every day because I think it would get a little redundant, but it's nice to do at least once on your trip. We call it the scat and dung tour because that's mostly what you're seeing. You're walking quietly, out into the bush. You'll see both of our rangers have rifles with them. They'll both tell you like they've never really had to use them, but it's there just in case. We didn't see a lot of animals out there, a couple of antelope species, but we did talk a lot about scat and dung. So scat is the droppings of carnivores, dung, the dropping of herbivores. So you get a nice lecture about all of that. It's a nice way to, we probably venture out a little bit, maybe a mile or so from the lodge and back. This is the spa entrance at Landolosi. So most of these reserves will have, if not a spa, at least a masseuse that will come to your room or whatever. This particular place has a massage or has a whole a spa area. Probably one of the better ones out of the reserves over there. Or you can sit by the pool. Perhaps a herd of elephants will come by. And before anybody asks, I don't remember what the story is about the chlorine and the intake of the water from the elephants. I don't remember what the story is. But we had just checked in. This was Ngala Safari Lodge. We had just checked in, and the manager called our room and said the elephants have just come to the pool. If you want to come out, we hadn't even unpacked yet, so I just grabbed my camera and we ran out there. It's funny, the guests that have already been there for a couple of days, they just sat back and ate lunch. It's all news to them already. And here's one drinking out of the pool. Just remember, these are not zoos; these are wild animals. Here's a friend of mine came over for a cigar and a glass of wine in the afternoon. And then you go back to work. So here's my entire crew. Again, my wife's right in front with the dark jacket, and then 3 other ladies joined us. So your afternoon game drive is usually leaving about 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, preceded by more food and more drink. So this is the typical setup in South Africa. This is different than what you would see in some of the other countries. But in South Africa, you have a guide, which is actually called a ranger, and that's who's driving. He's kind of in charge of things. And then out in the front, on that seat in the front of the vehicle, is a tracker. So his job is to look for tracks in the dirt road, find out what direction they're going, what animal it is, how fresh it is. Should we go try to follow, or is it not worthwhile? Should we just keep going forward? So every outing, you basically have a ranger and a tracker. And of course, you're looking for things like leopards. This one is obviously looking straight at me through the crook of a tree here. Wild dog. We'll talk a little bit more about some of these species. And these are a real treat because they've been endangered since 1990. We'll talk a little bit more about them. Beautiful markings. Lion feasting on the remains of a buffalo. I think there were, I want to say 12, maybe 12 or 14 lions at this carcass. Elephants, you get quite close. And one of the things I really like about elephants is you can photograph like individual parts of them because they're just everything's so identifiable that they're just really fun to zoom in occasionally and get some close-ups. Here's one of my favorite shots from the trip. This is a leopard in late afternoon light. I will tell you, in all my previous trips to Africa, I saw one leopard, and I think it was in Serengeti, and again, way out in the tree. I didn't even raise my camera, it was so far away, and we couldn't drive over to it. This one, I asked the guide to stop because there was some sort of water bird, I don't even remember what it was, down in a little pond. Boring shot, but I just wanted to shoot something. And after I took the shot, our ranger looked up, and this leopard was in the tree right above us. We would have driven right by had I not asked to stop to take the picture of the bird. Did you have a question?
That was my question. How close?
Yeah, the shot with the 100 to 400. So I mean, I'm not petting him or anything, but he's right in front of us.
Wow.
But I mean, the real thing was the beautiful light that we had right then. And again, you're out pretty much only when the light is really good. So this one's hanging in my house. So then
the photo.
Yes. Not the mount. Then you're starting to get towards sunset. Get some a chance for nice silhouettes. This is at Ngala. And then one of my favorite activities, time for sundowners. Once again, food and drink. So except this, now you're out in the bush, which is such a great experience. They'll set up either a table like you see in the front of the one vehicle here. It's attached to the front of the Land Cruiser, or they'll set up a table or this whole other setup with champagne and everything. They'll do some little snacks. Gin and tonics are still big there from the British influence. So G&Ts are big, and of course you're in South Africa, well known for their wine. So those are the two big ones. Although they'll put out there whatever you want. I'll say right now, like if you want to learn about customer service, this is the place. They know how to take care of their customers. More scenes from Sundowners. Just see a little bit close up on the left there. Some of the drinks they've got set up. Down in the bottom corner, we were coming back from the lodges, obviously getting quite dark, and we went off the main road. And again, somebody magically went out there, set this whole scene up just for the 5 of us. That table with the wine and gin and tonics and the lanterns all lit around. And I did see, like, off into the corner behind some trees, another vehicle. That must be the people that came to set it up and waiting to tear it all down when we left. Another stop for sundowners. And now the sun is going down, actually. This is right out of the camera. I didn't saturate this or anything. And there we are having final drinks before we get back in the Land Cruiser. So this is not a good photo, but 2 things. Number one, it's another white lion. This is a female. There's the only 2 over there right now, the male and the female. Although I did hear, I think that there's some cubs now. But I wanted to show, so you generally have a little bit of a night safari on the way back with spotlights and everything on your drive back. It's probably like maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes on your drive back. You'll do some night safaris. Again, you're in private reserves. Like you can't do that in the national park because you can't be in the park after dark or whatever. Here, that's not the case. Then you have dinner, which is generally an outside event. So these are generally in a round enclosure called a boma. This is the boma at Tangili River. This is the boma. I believe this is at Matswari, but I can't remember for sure. You see, it's like just dirt floor, got wood surroundings, some sort of a fence, and lanterns lit there. It's quite romantic, actually. So this night was in Matswari, and they did a surprise dinner in the bush. I think there were like maybe 15 chalets at the whole camp. So you're talking maybe 28 people at the whole camp. So all of us, unknowingly, it was a surprise. We all turned into the same spot around the same time, and they had this whole thing set up out in the bush. Now they do have a permanent structure built there for cooking. But again, a complete surprise to us. It was really nice, just luminaries and campfires. And they cooked barbecue for us. So this was taken about 10 feet out of my door in Tangili River. You're not supposed to go out at night unescorted. In fact, for dinner, someone will come and usually pick you up and escort you back afterwards because most of the camps are unfenced. So I took 10 feet outside to take the shot. My wife's having a fit, convinced I was going to get attacked by something. Our ranger showed us a picture the week before we were there. The bathroom, somebody took a picture of a leopard laying against their bathroom window. Like you literally would have been sitting on the toilet looking at this leopard laying next to you. We had a full moon there one night. So we'll talk about some of the species you can see while on safari. Again, you talk about the big 5. So that moniker was given to the 5 most dangerous animals to hunt back when hunting was big. And those are lions, leopards, elephants, rhino, and buffalo. So we'll start with those 5. You'll see in this particular lion, he's got pink nose with some freckling on it. The lion's nose is pink when young, and then it starts to freckle at about 3 years of age and gradually becomes fully pigmented around 8. He's got some nice healthy teeth. Here's our white male again. So just composition wise, I like in this particular case, you know, you look at the rule of thirds, which I don't always follow, especially with wildlife. I don't see anything wrong a lot of times putting them in the middle. But if they're showing some motion or going in a direction, I like to leave some room for them to walk into. So this one's kind of turning to his left, so I left some more room on the left side for him to walk into. I had a bunch of shots, but I like this one because he has his tail up in the air. Makes that more visible. Oops, I keep wanting to reach for the screen. Here's another one. I love his stance on this one. This one's coming right towards me. It's black and white. So this is a female, obviously. This is really low light, much
Why
darker.
obviously?
Yeah, what's that?
Why is it obvious?
Oh, you just see there's lack of light. I mean, I don't know. It's just it's not well lit like the other ones were. So it's,
Female.
yeah. Oh, you mean why is it obviously female?
Yeah.
Oh, no mane.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were asking about like.
Keep in mind a gynecologist.
Yeah, but she's the one that chases you down.
Really?
I have so many things I want to say right now, but I'm not gonna say any of them. Yeah, so she's staring right at me, obviously. Nice shot of her. Again, this is the male. This is in better light, obviously. Again, just beautiful morning light. So this is a shot you'll get a lot. A lot of people think they're growling or roaring. He's just yawning. So whenever any of these cats yawn, everybody's snapping pictures. So here's an example of what I don't like about being so close to the animals. You're shooting down. So obviously when you're shooting wildlife, it's always best to be at eye level. And in a lot of cases you can't because you're sitting up in a Land Cruiser. But I love this scene, but I'm shooting down at her. So just something you have to deal with occasionally. Here's another yawn. They do have healthy teeth though, don't they?
Yeah.
So here's two lions mating, obviously. So lions will mate every 15 to 30 minutes and can mate up to 50 times in a day. So if you miss the first time, just hang out. You'll get it the second time. Male lions are sexually mature around 2 years of age, but they usually don't start mating until they're about 4 to 5. So here's the white male having tiff with his father. So he's 3 years old. That is about the time generally that male lions get forced out of the pride. So his father, our ranger said the last couple of weeks, this has been commonplace for these two. So he's going to get forced out soon, and they'll go out and probably join a coalition with some other males until they're able to take over another pride. And this is a female eating part of the remains of a buffalo. And again, I'm shooting right down at it because we're so close to her. So elephants. Again, I love taking the distinct parts of elephants as far as a photo. So the elephant's trunk has about 40,000 muscles in it. So they have a great deal of dexterity with this thing. Here's one who's just took some water up and is drinking, putting that in the water into his mouth. Close up of the face and ears. They can live for up to 60 years old in the wild. This is a mother and 2 offspring, varying ages. They have the longest gestation period of any mammal at 22 months. Ooh. Oh. So this one looks like maybe he's a little bit menacing, like he's coming after us. So he's not. He's actually walking down a hill towards us, and he's just flapping his ears. When they hold their ears out to make themselves look bigger, that's not a good sign. That's when you want to back off. But this guy's just casually coming down a hill. They cool themselves off with their ears, and you'll see when you get close shots of their ears, they have a lot of capillaries showing. That helps to get that cool air in there. Plus, just flapping the cool air across their body helps cool them down.
Now, Jeff, do these, the ears?
Yeah.
There's the 2 different types. Is this the smaller ears for the African one?
No, they're the bigger ones. The Asiatic elephants have the smaller ones.
Yeah.
Jeff, can you repeat the question?
Oh, yes. Sorry. He asked about like you might see some elephants with small ears. Those are the Asiatic elephants. The African elephants have the bigger ears. Thank you, Vince. Yeah, here's one just playing with the water. Just kept on repeating, spraying the water out. No particular reason. Sometimes they'll spray it over their back. You'll see that. I like this close up has this trunk wrapped in around his tusk. I like this one. This is late afternoon light, again, showing all that texture and all the wrinkles. This is a little sepia effect. And who knew elephants could walk on water, but there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
That brings us back to leopards. I think I mentioned like I only saw one leopard before this trip. We saw leopards just about every day. The first one we saw was on the ground. I was like, I really want to see him in the tree though. I'm so, yeah, I know, so demanding. And then that's all we saw, leopards in trees after that. They were everywhere. And again, some really great light. So they're considered pound for pound, probably one of the strongest cats. They demonstrate this by taking their prey up into the trees to keep it away from other predators. I didn't include any pictures, but I do have pictures of like impala carcasses up in the tree. They'll take them up there so that nobody else can get them. There's another one peeking out for some leaves. Leopards spend most of their lives alone, except for mating or rearing young. This one's contemplating coming down. This one was actually up higher on the tree, started coming down, but on the other side of the tree. And I was like so disappointed. I was like, are you kidding me? We waited for him to come down and I'm not going to get a shot. Halfway down, there's a crook in the tree. He stops and sticks his head out through right towards us. He's well trained.
He gets paid for it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Got a treat after that. This was the first one we saw. I said it was on the ground. It's on actually a termite mound. This was at Matswari. This is a pretty heavy crop. He was actually kind of far away, but I love the whiskers sticking out. And look at the size of this male. You can tell it's like just the size of his shoulders and neck. He just looks so powerful. There's another one. This is down by a river and it's like all kinds of reeds. And we found this 9-month-old cub just laying there kind of posing for us. And then he rolled over and gave us this look. And he even placed his eye between these two blades of grass. I didn't have to clone anything out. So here's another example. We were a little bit higher, so I got down on my knees on the floor of the vehicle and got down as low as I could to try to get eye level. I will mention, by the way, I was the only one with any kind of camera equipment. My wife has a point and shoot, but the other 3 ladies just iPhones. So I didn't have to compete with anybody as getting position. But yeah, that was a nice pose for a little 9-month-old cub. So here's another example, like never shoot down, right? But I had to because this shows you how close. I literally could have reached down and petted this one. He walked right beside us. I don't recommend petting them, but. So here's a little tiff between 2 females over territory. You can see the one there in the right elbow already has a cut. And this happened quick. I will say one tip. Have your ISO set higher than what you think or your shutter speed higher than what you think, because when it happens fast. I was totally unprepared. I got these sharp, but when they were actually tangled up, they were all blurry because I just wasn't prepared for anything to happen that fast. So this is right after the fight. This is the victor. She's ever getting a drink of water. There's the vanquished. She's still kind of like ready to go. There's a male again. Look at the size of his neck. Another one walking real close to the Land Cruiser. Cape buffalo. These animals are considered dangerous due to their unpredictable temperament. So, I mean, they look very docile. They look like cows, but you just have to really pay their a lot of respect and pay attention to what their demeanor is at that time. They have not been domesticated, unlike a lot of the other, the Cape buffalo. They have not been domesticated, unlike a lot of other subspecies of buffaloes. These are, I believe, at Londolozi. See an oxpecker. You'll see oxpeckers on almost all the large mammals over there. We'll talk a little bit more about them. This is at Matswari. There was a herd of buffalo just slowly grazing, walking. We got out in front of them. And the whole herd was just right. I couldn't even hardly take pictures because they were just surrounding us and it was just all buffalo. So rhino, at the beginning of the 20th century, there are close to 500,000 rhinos thought to be in existence. By the 1970, they dropped to 70,000 total in the world. And today there's estimated to be about 27,000 rhinos left. And as you know, most of that is due to poaching. Some has to do with just land as well, but nearly all the rhinos we saw in South Africa on this trip had their horns cut. And you'll see that like this one is growing back. They do grow back. It's just keratin, same thing as our hair and our fingernails. That's all it is. So they do cut them. They can cut them several times in their lifetime. They do grow back, and you'll see some of these have some growth again. But every rhino we saw had been cut. The rhinos in the last several years have actually increased in population. So I think these measures are helping.
Do they cut them because of the poaching?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Even small little pieces are tremendously worthwhile for these people.
Hmm.
So another one just got out of the mud, and again, he's got a half decent horn growing again. This little one, I think, was around 2 weeks old, if I recall. Staying close to mom. Got to take a rest after standing that long. So that's those were the big five. Some of the other species we'll see: giraffe. That's obviously the tallest animal. Males can go up to 15 to 19 feet. Interestingly, as long as that neck is about 8 feet, they actually have the same number of cervical vertebrae as we do. So they're just obviously a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another silhouette. I like this one. You can see the eyelashes sticking out. So this is, again, the oxpecker. Again, you're going to see this on most of the large mammals. Another one of the oxpecker between the ossicones. So those two horns sticking up are called ossicones. Both males and females have them, but I can tell you right now that this is a male. And the way you can tell is the fur is rubbed off the top of the ossicones. That's from sparring with each other. So the females will maintain that fur. The males generally have them rubbed off from fighting. Giraffe and zebra. And speaking of zebras, even though they kind of like horses with stripes, you kind of fall in love with them when you're photographing them. So this one is displaying the Flehmen response. You'll see this in some other animals as well. Elk and moose, they all do this. They have a olfactory organ called the Jacobson organ above the roof of their mouth. So what they do is they close their nose. You'll see he's got his nose pinched shut. They'll suck in the air through their mouth, and they're sensing pheromones and stuff like that. So that's what's called the Flehmen response. Or my friends just called it a laughing zebra. Here's a foal. They're great fun to do in black and white. I don't think I included any black and whites in this one. I have that one in black and white. I like this one saying goodbye. It looks like the stripes on the tails look like they're braided. Cheetah, this is one of my favorite all-time animals. This is obviously the fastest land animal, gets up to speeds of about 60 miles an hour. Not as easy to see in South Africa because they like wide open spaces, and that's less of that wide open space in South Africa. Much more prevalent in Kenya and Tanzania. The largest population of cheetahs is actually in Namibia, but they're hard to see there because they're spread out over the entire country on private ranches and all that sort of thing. And that's a whole different issue, which I talked about on my Namibia presentation. Some of the things that they're doing to help prevent livestock getting killed by cheetahs. But at any rate, I did tell the people at Landalosi that I wanted to see some cheetah if possible. So she took us out to find cheetah. We found these two. Now, photographically speaking here, very overcast day. I'm shooting up a little bit because they're on this termite mound. So what I did was shoot high key. I did +2 on my exposure compensation, which blows out the sky, turning it more of a white instead of a gray, still maintaining the exposure for the cheetahs. And, you know, it's a nice artistic look, I think. And really, it's the only way to photograph that day without them looking very drab. But these are the only two we saw on our trip. Here's a close-up.
So.
Hippo, one of the most deadliest animals in Africa. They kill more than 500 people a year. bested only by the mosquito, which of course kills due to malaria. You don't think they can run fast, but they can, they'll run you over if you get between them and the water. That's the key. Do not get between them and the water. They're in the water most of the day, but they will get out in the evening at night to graze. And that's when trouble can happen. They can live 40 to 50 years.
Is that a nest on there?
Yes. Yep. Good spot. There are actually a lot of birds there. There's a smiling hippo, although they're all smiling.
Sure.
And everybody wants to get pictures of when they're yawning.
Oh,
Bigger yawn.
Mhm,
holy cow. You could really-
And that's wide open.
mhm.
There's a heron taking a ride. Now we'll do some birds. Again, lilac breasted roller. So the rollers are not sexually dimorphic, meaning the females and males both look the same. And they are like a big flash of blue when they're flying around there. This is a crested barbet. This trip to South Africa was the first time I actually saw this one. Really colorful. The African fish eagle, which is obviously reminiscent of our bald eagle. The African jacana. The southern ground hornbill, I think they're endangered or at least threatened. Southern yellow-billed hornbill. There are 11 vulture species in Africa, 5 of which are endemic, meaning they're only found in Africa. So here's the red-billed oxpecker again. It's sitting on a rhino. So these are also known as tick birds. That's their primary diet, but they'll also eat other insects and parasites off of the mammals, which is why they're always on them. Kudu and Nyala. These are 2 of the bigger antelope species you'll see. This is a Nyala. Their horns are not as big as the kudu, which is what this is. So there you see some of that rim lighting from being lit from behind. Another kudu. So this this is not a good picture, but I want to include like one of the obstacles you face in South Africa is that it is much more dense with vegetation. So you see it's a very complicated background there. It doesn't lend itself to a great photo. So it is something you have to be conscious of, and hopefully your ranger can get you in some good positions. Again, if you do have big glass and you've got a 2.8 or 4.0, that helps blow out that background. So that does come in handy in those situations. Monkeys and baboons. Baboon looking over his territory. I shot this one from the couch at the Tingili River Lodge, sitting out of the balcony. It's a monkey, vervet monkey. Another one also from our patio. Spotted hyenas. Interesting that genetically hyenas are actually more related to cats than they are dogs, even though they look more like dogs, obviously. I like this one because number one, it's got 3. Anytime you have 3 in a picture, that's good. And I like the way this one is just looking back and seeing what's up. Again, very early morning light coming in from behind. They have very powerful jaws, much more powerful than leopards and lions. They actually can crush bone, and their scat is typically white from all the bone that they eat. There's a little baby. They almost look like little bears. He's coming out of the den, hanging out with mom. Another one in early morning light. So hyenas can actually hunt successfully on their own, but they're better known as scavengers. So this leopard had just killed, I can't remember if it was an impala or what it was, but we got word that she had just made a kill. We rushed over there, and by the time we got, you see she still has blood on her face. By the time we got there, these 2 hyenas had come in and stolen the kill from the leopard. So we sat there for a while, and by the way, it's pretty dark during this photo. Like I'm shooting a very high ISO. That doesn't look that way because it's brightened up here. But one hyena grabbed the head of the animal. Again, I can't remember what it was. Ran off with the head. The other one was left with part of the carcass, was busy. This leopard snuck around that tuft of grass, grabbed part of the carcass, and ran up a tree with it. So at least it got some kind of meal. And there were lions. We heard lions also coming in. So it was, might have been a mess after we left because like I said, it was almost dark here. These are 2 hyenas coming down the road. And then the African wild dog, also called the painted wolf. So again, these have been endangered since I think 1990. They're the most successful hunter in Africa. They have about an 80% success rate. Lions might only have about a 30% success rate. The reason they're so successful is they, number one, they hunt in packs, the big packs, and number two, they have unending energy. They just wear down their prey. It's not like they have to be, stealthy or anything. They just run them down until they run out of energy.
How tall are they?
They look like a regular sized dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question, Jeff?
Yeah. Oh, he wanted to know how big the dogs were,
Like a
or
shepherd?
what's that?
About a shepherd size?
I would say like a German Shepherd size. Beautiful markings, except for this one's covered with blood, obviously. Just got done a meal. So we found this pack. They were laying down on the ground, and it was actually the dirt road was the dividing line between 2 private reserves, and we couldn't go over to them. They were right on the other side. And our guide said, let's wait for a little. It's getting late. They'll probably get up soon. And sure enough, they did. He said, get ready, because once they get up, they do not stop. And the whole pack got up and just went down this road, and we couldn't even keep up with them because they were just going all over the place, off the road. But he said, once they go, they go. And they're having a post-feast playtime. The current population is probably only around 1,500 adults, another few thousand juveniles, many of which will not make it due to a variety of reasons. Number one, they need a lot of adults to feed all the pups. They also can suffer from rabies, distempers, and some of those canine illnesses as well. So it's tough to grow the population. The adults come back and regurgitate the food to the pups.
What caused their decline originally?
I think, well, it's that, and I think just the amount of land that's being, getting smaller and smaller. And impala, these are the main item on the smorgasbord over there for the predators. But they're beautiful animals. King of the Hill. So we'll just finish up with some lodging here. Give me an idea of what to expect there in the private reserves. So, what type of experience do you want? What's your budget? I mean, you can do economic camps to really quite luxurious camps. One thing to keep in mind, costs usually include pretty much everything there. You don't take your wallet out except for tips at the end for your driver, your guides, and housekeeping, etc. So costs usually include 2 game drives, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, all your food. Most of them include your alcohol. Laundry will usually be available either free or at a very low cost, so you don't have to pack as much as you might think. And again, tips are not included. So this is Matswari. This is the first place we stayed. I would consider this sort of like a mid-range lodge. And you'll see this is quite spacious, quite nice. We loved the staff here. The food here was fantastic. This is your porch in the front looking out over, and wildlife will be walking right by. We could see giraffe and stuff from our seats. Had a very nice traditional Africa feel, I think, to it. A lot of Africa style art. This is the Boma. So this is Ngala Safari Lodge. You'll see we're kind of going up the scale as we go along. I'm going here in order the way that we did the trip. So obviously this is more modern feel, which you may or may not want on an African safari.
Yeah.
Outdoor shower. This is their communal area. This is where the elephants come to the pool to drink. And we also stayed at Ngala tented camp. So these are not at all like Boy Scout tents.
Yeah.
Hardwood floor that's kind of got like a plexiglass sides there. So those aren't screens or anything. So it's air conditioned, it's heated, depending on whatever season you're there. You have a nice bathroom area, outdoor shower again.
That's the tents, right?
Yeah, these are the tents.
Yeah.
Yep. Like I said, not your Boy Scout camp.
Yeah.
The whole camp is tented. So even the kitchen area, the dining area, it's all tented. This is like a communal area. This is Londolozi. This is a very storied place that I made sure that we definitely got to this place. This has been in the same family, I think, for about 100 years. They're one of the strongest voices in conservation in South Africa. They've helped get a lot of other lodges started and really have set a high bar for conservation. You could spend a couple hours just on their website falling in love with this place and their whole attitude, their whole concept, customer service, impeccable. All these places by day 2, everybody knew what you drank. You didn't have to order anything. They had it ready for you. So Londolozi is actually a combination of 5 lodges that are all connected by a walkway. You can walk between any of them. This is actually the cheapest one out of the 5, but they're all very nice. This is your private patio, plunge pool, which we did not use. Again, the water's a little chilly from cold nights yet. This is their communal area. Bartenders. And again, that's pretty much all covered. Any drinks you want. This is their going into their Belma at night. Somebody's spending a lot of time lighting all the lanterns.
Yeah.
This is setting up for dinner here. So in 1993, Londolozi actually became the first game reserve in the world to be accorded relay and chateau status. And then this is Tangili River Lodge. This is kind of like off the charts luxury, and it's definitely not an African feel. So again, it may or may not be what you're after. We ended up with this place by default through a number of things that that occurred that this was the one that was left. I mean, I'm certainly glad we did it, but it's not necessary. This is the patio or the outdoor porch, private pool. I mean, it's like having a house almost. This is the bar area. This is their fire pit. So, I mean, it's no secret that African safaris can be expensive. You know, where is your money going? You really are doing a lot to support local communities. This is taken from the Londolozi site. When you visit Londolozi, you're doing far more than immersing yourself in a thrilling wildlife safari. You're contributing to developing the socioeconomic well-being of a whole human ecosystem. Community upliftment, rural education, healthcare, and protection of a safe haven in which rhinos and other iconic species can roam freely are just some of the ways that your money are going to help the local people. All these lodges obviously employed local people, gives them jobs. A lot of the money goes back into healthcare. A lot of them will run health clinics. They help with education and funding schools. So it really has a big impact on the entire system over there. This is the way that, you know, these communities are relying on safari money at this point to keep things going. So it's nice to see what these places are doing, where your money's gone. This is just some of the places that Londolozi is giving money. And Beyond is another major corporation. They own the Tangili River, and they also own the Ngala Reserve that we were at. Again, just some of the charities that they give their money to. And as I mentioned, the people there are just phenomenal. This was our ranger at Ngala Tented Lodge. They're super informative. They love what they're doing. They're very energetic. I mean, there were instances when something was happening in front of us that the guide must have seen 100 times, and he's still super excited to see. Coming back from every game drive at Tangili, somebody was out there greeting us like this, even though we'd already been there, 3 days. This is our ranger and guide at Ngala Safari Lodge. They were set up for sundowners. You see there, we're mostly short sleeves. This is our ranger at Matswari. He knew that we like Chardonnay, so at lunch he actually brought over a couple bottles to go over like where they came from. Do you want to take these out for sundowners tonight? Blah blah blah. He actually called ahead to Londolozi, which is our next stop. They're not connected, these two lodges. Called ahead to tell them to make sure that they had Chardonnay out for our sundowners. I mean, that's the kind of customer service that takes place there. These are 2 of our trackers. This is Taylor. She was our only female ranger. This is at Londolozi. You'll see that she got me a bean bag, which is right on the bar next to her. And then back behind that, you'll see like a little pedestal on a post that I could attach to the railings. She got that for me as well. And had there been other photographers, obviously, she could have gotten those for them as well. So as soon as she saw that I was serious about it, the very next game drive and the rest of the game drives there, she had that out for me. This is one of our trackers. Sundowners having drinks at sunset. So what kind of trip do you want to do? There's a couple of choices. I was just talking to Bob about this. So general group safari, which is actually what I did on my first trip to Africa. It was not necessarily photography based, but it got you there and it was relatively inexpensive. You're with a large group, but you're basically breaking up into groups of 5 or 6 to go out on a vehicle. Yes.
The tour group I go with has an absolute maximum of 16. No tour will ever have more than 16.
Yeah.
And that's on all our tours.
So Bob was saying that the group that tour he's going on has no more than 16 people on the whole group. I think we had more than that, but again, you're only with a group on the Land Cruiser of like 5 or 6. That's it.
Yeah.
And then together you might have a bigger group at dinner.
Yeah.
Again, maybe not photography based, but it gets you there. It's less expensive and you get the experience and you still get great pictures. Trust me. Photography workshop. There's a ton of people doing photography workshops. My friend out of Lehigh Valley, Buddy Eliezer, he does multiple workshops every year. And he's local if you want to work with somebody local. Obviously the advantage, and I'm actually going with him to South Africa and Botswana in July. The advantage there obviously is to focus on photography. That's all you're doing. It might be an advantage if you're not taking a spouse, it becomes less expensive. I've done both workshops and with my spouse. But if you're going, solo, you're going to share a room with somebody, but you're obviously only paying for one person instead of 2 and again, all photography minded. You get to learn and sharpen your skills. Again, may or may not be ideal for non-photography spouse. Or a custom trip, which is what this was. You design it, you figure out where you want to go. You have somebody book everything. In my opinion, the best way to go is to get a group of like 5 or 6 people, put the group together and design it, figure out your budget, and then you'll have the whole Land Cruiser to yourself. And you go, you do what you want. And then my final thoughts from the Landolozi website. Safari is no longer simply about traveling to view animals in their natural habitat. Over the last decade, the industry has undergone a rebirth. These days, the focus is far more on a way to commune with nature, to rediscover the appeal of stillness in life, and most importantly, to reconnect with oneself. And as I always say, remember to put the camera down for every once in a while and take it all in, because it's truly a gift to be able to do this. Every time I go there, one of the main emotions I have is gratitude. Not everybody gets to do this. And for many people, it might be your one trip of a lifetime. But I think it's worth it. And I've never talked to anybody that's done it that hasn't been really moved by the experience. So that's it. And I'm happy to take any questions.
You mentioned malaria. Were you taking malaria medication?
So the first time I went to Africa, I took yes. So thank you. The question was, do I take malaria medication? First time I went to Africa, I did take it for a couple of days. I found I really affected my sleep. It's well known to affect dreams and stuff like that for some people. So I stopped, and every other trip I have not done it. Generally, when you go in the dry season, it's not as big of a deal for most places. Having said that, check with your physician. But generally, like every time I've gone, there's hardly been any insects at all during the dry season. I mean, like annoyingly, like you're expecting it to be at least as bad as here. No, it's hardly anything there.
To follow up with that question, my son-in-law is an infectious disease specialist in malaria at UCSF and goes to Africa 3 times a year, to Uganda and everywhere over there. He's never there without his malaria pills, and they mess up his sleep badly.
Yeah.
But he would advise not to go there without being on malaria pills.
I'm scheduled to see a travel specialist doctor over the Tower Health.
Well, I would say this. I would say this too. If I didn't have any side effects from it, I would probably take it. Just why not? But for me, it affected me too much.
I've
And
had it before, and I had 0 effects.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I had it when I went to Myanmar.
yeah. So that's kind of the way I feel about it. If I wouldn't have side effects from it, I probably would take it just because. But my experience has been very, very little in the way of bugs.
Well, we'll be there in the crisis.
Yeah.
But Oh, I'll be going to Zimbabwe and Zambia also. I'll
Okay.
report back to you.
All right, very good. Anything else or anything from the chat line? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff, I was wondering with those fenced in areas, what'd you call them, Bonzi or something like
The
that?
bomas?
Bomas, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that just for protection against the animals?
I think it's a little bit of everything. It's sort of maybe a little bit for the animals, but also just wind or anything like that. Again, most of these areas are unfenced. But I can't remember like actually seeing, I mean, during the day, we get monkeys and all that sort of thing, or yeah, they're everywhere. But I've never seen like a leopard come through. I've seen YouTube videos of leopards coming up right into the dining hall of places. So I've not experienced that. But I think part of the Boma thing is also like just historical. That was something that was, done years ago. And I think it's just part of the African tradition now at this point.
Jeff, are you leading tours or just an advocate of Africa?
So the question was, am I leading tours or just an advocate? Right now, just advocate. Again, I mean, I would be open if people want to go to put something together. I personally think that is the way to go to Africa, is to get a group together of 5, 6, 12, whatever you want to do. If you get 10, you're going to go out in 2 vehicles. You get 5 people, you're going to have 1 vehicle. And then you can just design what you want. You can go where you want to go and that sort of thing. So I have not personally led any kind of photography trip or anything like that. This was the first time I put together like a custom trip like this. And it was just friends and everything. I didn't feel too much pressure. And nobody's
Oh, you have any more slides?
no, that's it.
Okay, go ahead and escape out of it then.
Good.
Let's go ahead and bring those people up and see if they have any
Oh,
questions.
yeah. Do you need me out of the way or?
No, you're still running the show. If I can find the cursor, there it is. Yeah, let's bring their faces up on our big screen so we can talk to them. There we go.
I
Jay,
don't, s- I don't see any questions in the chat here.
Means we have such a great speaker.
Yeah. We're also all asleep.
I don't think anybody
No,
else.
I don't think so either.
I have a question about starting your own trip. How did
Yeah.
you go about it? Did you know where you wanted to go, or did you go to the internet to look for information, or a travel agency, or how'd you do that?
So yes, all of those. I ended up booking everything through my friend Buddy, who runs all the safaris, but I gave him what I wanted. So I did the research of the different lodges I wanted to go to. I mean, I ran things by Buddy and got his suggestions on things as well, but it's pretty much what I wanted to do, a number of nights and everything. He basically put together the transportation, got us to and from places, and did the actual booking. But it was pretty much what I designed. So yeah, it was just looking on the internet. Londolozi, I had a friend who had been there, and that's kind of his favorite place on earth. So I definitely wanted to build it kind of around that one. But I would say I was really happy with every single place that we went to. And there's a lot of other choices there as well. I mean, those are the ones I ended up with, but you have a lot of other choices. And not all of them, a lot of them might just be like the Matswari, which was the first one, which is more economical, but absolutely fantastic. I love that place as well.
How
Yes.
bad is the poaching situation?
The question was, how bad is the poaching situation? I think it's probably getting better in a lot of ways, especially in the areas we were at, because they spend a lot of money in anti-poaching. So I don't know what the actual numbers are. I do know like rhinos were getting better. I think the last chart I saw, it took a decline again. But in general, getting better. I know in places in Namibia I was at where they actually had former poachers are now rangers. So they gave them jobs to get them out of the poaching, and they're actually helping to protect the rhinos. The rhinos are a big emphasis right now in protection from poaching. But it still goes on for sure. Again, I don't know if things are getting worse or better in certain areas, but it's definitely a major emphasis over there.
So to combat poaching, do they have guards out at night with night vision goggles and that sort of thing?
We saw poaching units out. You were not allowed to take pictures of them or anything because they don't want the people to be identified. But we saw them out. They do walk. They go out for like days at a time, and they're camping out there. There's no, I mean, they're not in a Land Cruiser or anything like that. I don't know all the details. Again, we weren't allowed to take any pictures of them or anything. They don't want, I guess they don't want other people in the community to know who they are. But they're out there, it's a paid job out there.
All right,
Rick,
Mike.
Rick
Oh.
asked, what's the typical cost of a photography trip?
So I'm sorry, say that again?
Rick asked, what is the typical cost of a photography trip?
It depends. Like, again, you can, what's the cost of a typical photography trip? So I'm trying to think of what I saw on some of Buddy's sites. I'm gonna say, I know Matswari, I'd look because I figured this question was gonna come up. Matswari was, and that was the first camp I showed you. Again, the most economical. I think that was somewhere around $450 a night per person. So again, if you're there as a couple, you got to double that. If you're there on a photography trip and you're just sharing a room, that's your cost for the night. Obviously, you're going to pay a little bit more for the photography leader if you're going on a workshop, but I just want to give you some kind of idea. I would say in general, you're probably going to be planning on at least 750 a night or more. That, like I said, a minimum.
So you're talking about $15,000 per person for many of them with a workshop.
Less than that. I think, I don't remember what I'm doing on this one. Well, I can tell you, the one I remember, I think I went with Art Wolf to Namibia. So I mean, it's as big a name probably as you can find. And I think I paid 14 for 2 weeks. But again, that's Art Wolf. Somebody else is definitely going to be cheaper than that.
Well, not a photography trip, but with airfare.
Yeah.
Everything rolled in, and that's business class airfare. A regular tour, 15K for 3 weeks
Is that per person?
per person.
Yeah.
And I go with single, and
Yeah.
those single supplements
But that's for 3 weeks.
for 3 weeks.
Yeah. I can tell you the first trip that we did, now this was some years ago, was my wife and I, we went on a group tour, not a photography trip. I think the whole thing was 14,000 for the two of us.
That's great.
Yeah. Like I said, that was some years ago.
Yeah.
And I got plenty of great pictures. You're not out at daybreak. You're having breakfast first, and then you're going out. But it gets you there. That's, to me, is step number one.
The tour I'm going on, their morning tours, gate stuff is before breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah. That's way photography trips are.
Yeah, but this one,
Yeah.
this is just a regular one, so I think some of the regular ones are changing over too.
Yeah.
They're doing the morning drives early before breakfast.
All right. Yes.
Jeff, it looks like some of those smaller preserves or so, that they're close enough that you could actually hit maybe a couple of them while you're there, right?
Yeah. So we did 3 nights at each. You need me out of the way?
Nope.
No. But yes, some of them are quite close. You could do 2 nights and then go somewhere else for 2 nights. I personally don't want to keep packing up too much if I don't have to.
Yeah.
And it's, you could do workshops with like just 2 reserves. I chose to do 3 nights in each one because I wanted a little bit of variety. Plus, I love lodges. So I wanted some different lodges and stuff. If you're not into that, you just want to see the wildlife, you can stay planted in one place if you want. And if I had to choose one out of all of them, it would be Landolosi. I just love the feel of that place.
That's when it was been in the family for.
Yeah, yeah.
So just out of curiosity, I just Googled a
Yeah.
photographic workshop. And I don't know who this person is, but it's 12 days is 16,000 per person.
That's expensive.
And that's just there.
Yeah.
Not getting there.
Not getting there, right? Like I said, you can spend some money over there.
But you're sporting a good cause.
Well, I mean, it does make you feel a little bit better. Like I said, for many people, it's going to be one trip, one and done. And you don't have to go on a photography workshop. And it can be cheaper. And they're definitely cheaper than 16,000.
And the other thing is that you can simply, they have other activities during the day, visiting local schools.
Yes, yeah.
Visiting local families.
Yeah. And
so you do get outside the reserve.
Yeah. I think when Buddy, who goes over there multiple times a year, I think his trip to and again, I'm just spitballing here, but I think his trip to Zamanga for 8 days was like 8,000. So right around 1,000 a day, roughly. If he's watching the recording, he's gonna call me and say, that's not right. Go ahead.
Jeff, how about in tipping? You mentioned about tipping like the guides,
Yeah,
drivers and this, that and the other.
I don't remember the numbers.
I was gonna say, is it a percentage or anything like?
Yeah, you'll find all kind of guidance, either from your booking company or online. I mean, it's not, I mean, the Rangers get the bulk of it. The housekeeping stuff is not a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah, a regular tour company will give you guys.
Yeah,
Not like tour company I go with, they cover the tips,
that's built in.
it's built in, which
That's nice.
makes life a lot simpler for you.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, if you wanted to just sort of eyeball it, I guess, like, I think maybe 750 to 1,000 a day could get you there. You can easily spend more depending on who the person is, how big of a name they have. And how long, what kind of lodging. I mean, I just looked at one, they stay at this very expensive lodge. It was $5,000 for 3 nights. I said, no, thank you. It's beautiful, but like, again, as much as I like lodges, I'm really there more to photograph the animals. So I don't need that. I don't want bucket showers, but if I have a nice bed and
How
I'm
many
good.
massages can you get?
yeah, well, I could do one a day. I don't, but I'm just saying I could.
Okay, well, that's correct.
Well, good.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are we there to go?